Hello, friends. While I'm taking a little time away to enjoy life as it's happening, I've chosen a few episodes from the Virg Vault that I thought were worth revisiting. Welcome to Rewind on the Verge, a chance to return to an earlier conversation, story, or maybe an adventure that still feels meaningful today. I'll be back soon with plenty to catch up on. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this rewind. Welcome back. For this trip into the Virg Vault, we're going back to last summer's European adventure. Oh gosh, one of my favorites. Menorca, Mahone, Cagliari, Sardinia, and the kind of cruise fellowship that becomes part of the memory of a trip. This episode has travel, food, wine, and one of my very favorite things in the whole world, connection. It carries exactly the kind of celebratory energy I want to share while I'm taking this little time away. So, settle in and enjoy this Rewind on the Verge, episode 41. Our exciting summer series continues, and today we will be talking about Mahone, Menorca, Spain, and Cagliari, Sardinia, Italy. I am so excited to keep talking about my European vacation. I have gotten together with a few friends and we just keep talking about what a lovely time we had and how we can't wait to go back again and all the things. So I'm really excited to talk to you today about Menorca, also known as Mahone, Mahon. This is in Spain, and I'll read a little bit about it to you. Mahone is the most striking when approached by sea, perched atop a cliff overlooking the natural harbor, two plazas lined with cafes and restaurants on one side, and the other side a tranquil church site of Santa Maria, known for a celebrated organ with 4 keyboards and more than 3,000 pipes. Mahone, capital city of Menorca, is surrounded by the second deepest natural harbor in the world. The water remains almost entirely clear because of the enclosure of the Balearic Islands. Records of history stretch back to the Bronze Age. Wow. And Gothic, Baroque, Romanesque architecture is what speckled the streets. It was gorgeous. The approach was beautiful. The colors. Menorca, the most northern Balearic island, is a knobby cliff-bound plateau with a central hill, El Toro, from whose 1,100-foot summit you could see the whole island. Established as the island's capital in 1722, when the British began their nearly 80-year occupation. To this day, it still bears the stamps of its former rulers, and you can see 4-story Georgian townhouses in various states of repair, and the Mahonese still nurse a craving for Chippendale furniture and drink gin. Islanders in Menorca use both Catalan and Castilian names in signage and in everyday speaking, and you may hear Mahone called simply Mao. That is what their local dialect and language is referred to as. And so this was a gorgeous place that for sure I was anxious to explore and discover. I loved it. It was beautiful, and I just love the feeling. So we got off early. We walked on over. The big thing in Menorca are the shoes. They're known for those Menorcan sandals. And sure enough, as soon as you start to get close to the area where you have to take an elevator to go up, or this huge flight of stairs to go up and get to where you can explore the city, they started selling those shoes along the way. And they all look the same. They come in many different colors. And some places give you the opportunity to pick your own color, your own strap, your own combination, and then they'll put them together for you. So therefore they are, custom made shoes, and they're pretty cool. Well, I did end up getting some, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. But we headed into town. We took the elevator up. We had our friend Judy with us, and Daniel and Susan were with us as well. It was just as hot as it had been, but we felt a little better prepared, I think. And so we had a really nice time. We walked around, we window shopped, we looked around at all the cute little, they had like a little open air flea market that we wandered around into for a while. And I found this young gentleman that was whittling guitars, and I bought one for my son. And after that, we headed to another place where they were making custom made Menorcan sandals and hand painted Menorcan sandals. So I saw some that I thought would be perfect, and they had my favorite color, purple, and I was going to have them paint some, and they said it takes 15 to 20 minutes. I can get it done for you. And she said, what are you looking for? And I said, well, I like the ones that are in the window. And it just so happened they were my size. So I got my hand painted custom Menorcan sandals, and they are so comfortable, you guys. It was surprising to me that, they're kind of stiff, and they're leather, obviously, but they're kind of stiff. And when you first put them on, you think, ooh, these aren't. Within an hour, they start to break in and form to your feet. They're really cool. I like them a lot. And anyway, enough about that, but I was really excited to be able to say that I got a pair of sandals in Menorca. And then we walked back. It was kind of a hilly place, and it did start to get a little bit uncomfortable, and we had seen kind of all there was to see. It's a small town. We did not want to head up to the side where they had the church, because it was a really, really long climb, and we just weren't up for it. So we took pictures, we spent time. We ended up running into another friend who was heading in while we were heading back to the ship. Part of our package with the Europa wine cruise that we were on was, or came with, I guess, included, the fact that my mouth won't work today, you guys. I don't know what is going on, but okay, I'm going to keep going. So we had a class with Dr. Doug, who is a sommelier, and it was a wine class to teach us, different things about different wines, and it came with 3 tastings. And so it was a pretty packed room. I think there were, like I said, just over 100 of us on the trip, and I would say almost as many showed up for the class. It was a really neat class, and I remember the Albarino was my favorite. I think there were 2 others that others liked more, and we took pictures of the bottles, but sadly mine came out quite blurry, so I'm not really sure what the other 2 wines we drank were. I will ask Dr. Doug. He's going to be a guest on the podcast, and I will ask him to remind us what we drank that day. But he gave us some really nice takeaways. Of course, he told us his story and how he ended up becoming a sommelier. And then he went on to pour our first glass, which was the Albarino, and continued to give us some tips about how to clean your glasses, how to see if the glass is clean. What do you do when you're swirling? And I'm going to save all of those details for when he's on the podcast. I will leave you with one takeaway that was like one of those moments. If you've ever been wine tasting and you think you know anything about wine, you're supposed to swirl, and then you look at the legs and you see if the legs are running down fast or thin or thick or slowly, or no legs at all. And Dr. Doug says the legs don't mean a damn thing. So there you go. I learned that, and that was one of those aha moments for me when it came to my journey and relationship with wine. It was a nice class. It was informative. It was short and sweet, and we tasted 3 nice glasses of wine. Well, not full glasses, but pretty decent sized tastings. All in all, I thought it was a pretty good class, and I really enjoyed Dr. Doug, and that's when I went up and asked him if he would consider being on the podcast, and he will be an upcoming guest on the podcast. So I had a really nice time, and we had all word had gotten out that there was a tea time at the front of the ship every evening. So a couple of us headed back there to tea time, and it was lovely. The tea service that they set is very pretty. I have a picture that I'll post on Instagram, and it's a lovely, relaxing moment. It's quiet. You're at the front of the ship. You get to watch them leave the port, and you get to choose, from a beautiful variety of teas. And then they come around with finger sandwiches and cookies and, little tea cakes. And it was just really, really, really pretty. And so we enjoyed a little bit of tea time, and then we had to get ready because we were going to be having dinner at the Polo Grill, and that's their steakhouse. And we were pretty excited about it. So there we go, and headed out back to dinner, where my husband ordered oysters Rockefeller, which were really pretty. And I think, I ordered the crab cake. A lot of people ordered the crab cake. It was delicious. And hubby had the filet and I had the rack of lamb, both outstanding, both pictured on Instagram. And we closed it off with creme brulee. Of course, we are meeting at Martini's for a quick before dinner drink, and then we go get in line and we are welcomed. And by this time, everybody knows, that the wait staff knows who you are, and who your favorite servers are, and so it starts to get really fun and really kind of, I don't know, it was just such a lovely experience. Anyway, we all had a lovely dinner. The whole time they are serving whatever the wine of the evening is. You have a sommelier at your disposal, and this is all included. So we happen to have gotten the upgraded package, so we could get the hard liquor and alcohol, I guess, around the clock. But at dinner and lunch, you were able to get beer and wine. It's included in your cruise price. So some of the wines they served at the Polar Grill were delicious. And the meal that night to me was outstanding. I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the company that evening. It was a smaller group, so you were able to chat with everybody and kind of have conversations back and forth and across the table without feeling like you were interrupting another conversation. I just missed Terry. Terry didn't get to go with us because we couldn't get a reservation for 7. And, that's the only thing that stinks about these cruises. You're kind of limited. There's usually like 2 tops, very few of them, and then 4 tops, 6 tops, very few 8 and 10 tops. And so they're not willing to give up their 8 top or their 10 top to a group of fewer than that. And this all becomes an issue later on, but I'll tell you that at another time when we cover that episode. Those of you who know, and yes, it is coming up. Patricia makes a comeback to the podcast. In any event, we ended the evening at Martini's as per usual. By now we had our little post-dinner group that ended up meeting, and it consisted of most of the time it was Per and Bjorn. Per, you'll remember, was the person who organized this entire trip, and he owns a travel agency and does this all the time. And then, of course, our core group plus Terry, who joined us. And then oftentimes it would include Judy and Linda and Kim and Kim's kids. And shout out to all of you guys. I miss you guys, and I can't wait for you guys to all come and see us. We've talked about it often, the ladies and I, when we've met up. And so we had a good time at Martini's. I remember Tyler, I think that was the night that Tyler was doing really well on roulette at the casino, and I passed by for some reason, and he asked me, "What's your number?" And I said 24, and he ended up playing 24. I hope he did well, but I never asked him. And Ben and Greg, wandered off, and Greg had a relatively good night that night. And then I think even Nancy went over and did a little gambling that night. I was saving my money for my spa treatments and also for my hopeful purchase in Capri, where I could hopefully get something that I had been wishing for. But, who knew? I wasn't going to gamble. That's all I knew. But the boys had a really good time. And that evening in particular, there was a lot of laughter. I remember that. And it was quite a late night. But we all had a great time and prepared for our next day, where we were going to be docking in beautiful Cagliari, Sardinia, Italy. Oh, we were finally going to be in Italy. I was so excited. I have wanted to go to Italy as long as I could remember. And I think as far back as when I realized that this world was bigger than just where I lived. When you're a kid, you get the basic geography and you know that you're in the United States, and they give you the map, and you can kind of get a perspective of where you fall on the map. And then you see a globe and they show you this big old mass of land that is the United States inside of a larger mass of land known as North America, and you're introduced to continents. And as a child, to me, that was just mind blowing that there was all of this water, and then far, far away, other people lived and went to school just like I did, but they spoke a different language and they probably ate different food. And I never really connected geography with culture and travel. And so consequently, I'm terrible at geography, but I knew I always wanted to go to Italy. The food always fascinated me, the culture, the language. I'm fluent in Spanish, so Italian's not, a far reach. And I was actually kind of excited to try out my really bad Italian and see if I could get by in a country like Italy. So we landed in Cagliari, Sardinia, Italy. And I'll tell you a little bit about it. Cagliari is the city capital of Sardinia, Italy, the northern extremity of the Gulf of Cagliari, and was probably occupied in prehistoric times, but its foundation is attributed to the Phoenicians. It was known to the Greeks as Cardlis and to the Romans as Caralis. The principal Carthaginian stronghold in Sardinia, it was occupied by Romans in the Second Punic War, 218 to 201 BC, and probably obtained full Roman civic rights from Julius Caesar in the 1st century BC. In Imperial Roman times, i.e. after 27 BC, Caralis became the most important town on the island, mainly because of its fine sheltered harbor. It's thought that a lot of the Roman governors lived there back in the 4th and 5th centuries, and it became the chief point of their road system in Sardinia. It was independent in Europe in the Middle Ages, but later fell to the Pisans and the Aragonese before passing with the rest of Sardinia to the House of Savoy in 1718. It probably occupies the site of Carthaginian Acropolis, and the principal monuments are the Cathedral of Santa Cecilia, 1257, rebuilt in 1669, the Archaeological Museum from 1307, and the University of Cagliari, founded in 1606. They also have the domed Basilica of San Saturnino, or SS is what it's referred to. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous place. I mean, it looks like, what it reminded me of is every year we watch the Ten Commandments at Easter time, and it reminded me of some of those backdrops. Well, probably not far off, Virginia, but that's what I felt I had been immersed in, and it was just beautiful. So we took a tender across to Cagliari, and you get off and walk a little bit further, and then you kind of go uphill and around the corner, and you see the row of, really cute little shops and cafes. And I remember that it was quiet and that it wasn't a very busy day there, but it was, hustle bustly, and there were some larger streets than I expected there to be. One of them, I found a Michelin star restaurant, which obviously was not open, but that would have been awesome. And then they had this cute little quaint bed and breakfast just kind of among the rest of the town. And it just felt like this would be a really cool place to come back and stay. And then, of course, you had the beautiful little cafe lined streets where you could look down the street and see people sitting and enjoying their mornings and afternoons. And of course, we ended up shopping. I was on the hunt for Italian leather for my daughters in love, and I was going to find it. Damn it. Today was my day. I hit pay dirt. We found this gorgeous Italian leather shop that sold 100% Italian leather handbags, and they had a beautiful variety. So I promptly stocked up on handbags for my daughters in love and snagged one for myself. This was actually one of my favorite days. Not a lot happened, but it was just a chill day, and the camaraderie was beautiful. This day, it was just Daniel and Susan and Ben and I, and we wandered around aimlessly, but at the purse store, Susan fell in love and found her new favorite purple purse and got one too. So it was just fun. We walked around for a while, and then we decided, okay, we've seen what we want to see. It's hot. Let's go back and have some pool time. That had become the afternoon tradition, along with sometimes more than other copious amounts of piña coladas. So we headed back on the tender. We got back to the cruise ship, and we went back and ordered a poke bowl and had a little bit of downtime, and then headed out to the pool where we had copious amounts of piña colada yet again, and relaxed, enjoyed the afternoon, and then went and got ready for dinner. And you betcha, we all met at Martini's to try to continue to get through the list of martinis and have a drink before we headed out to dinner. This night, we ended up with a huge group of people because everybody who was at Martini's wanted to hang out with us. So we ended up being joined by, I believe it was, I can't remember exactly. I know who it was. It was Per and Bjorn. And this night we had a party of 9, I think it was. It was a lovely evening. After that, we all went back to Martini's and joined our other regulars that met up with us there. And we continued to plow through the menu, and I didn't really. A lot of these nights, by the time, you're really ambitious. You're like, I'm going to get back and I'm going to have a martini after dinner. Well, you get there, you eat an appetizer, a salad, maybe a soup, an entree, a side, a dessert, possibly an espresso or a cappuccino, and you're having a white wine or a red wine throughout your dinner, and you're finishing with a port or something. And then you think you're going to go have more martinis, and it doesn't work out. So oftentimes we would head back to Martini's with the highest of hopes and order club soda and lime or something. So, a little anticlimactic on the getting through the list at Martini's, which, by the way, spoiler alert, we never did. But we did keep trying for the duration of the trip. In not so methodical a way, if I'm being honest. At one point, we just kind of gave up and realized, you know what, we have our favorites, let's stick to them. And that's what we did. But it was a fun idea. Anyhow, we had a lovely evening in Cagliari, Sardinia. And again, a super, super late sunset. So after dinner, I believe on this particular night, a couple of people decided to take a walk and take sunset pictures. And I think this was one of the nights that we were kind of pooped and decided that we would call it an early evening. And we knew that we still had a lot ahead of us. And our next stop is Tunis, Tunisia, South Africa. So I will tell you what I did on Tunisia Day, and I will be back to continue the series. This was just a quick short hit because, listen, I was busy having fun. I told you I'd tell you all about it. I told you I would show you pictures, and I'm doing all of those things. But at the end of the day, I was busy making new friends, having wonderful fellowship, and having a great time. And hell, that's what it's really all about. So I appreciate you listening to this episode of the summer series. I know that by now, most of our children are back in school or heading back to school very, very soon. So there's really not a lot of time for any sort of a staycation podcast that I promised you earlier. But I will leave you with this. I think it's kind of a cool tip. If your kids have not cleaned out their drawers or their closet, it is a good opportunity for them to learn a lot about a lot. So you have them, depending on their age, of course, you want to gauge it. So if it's a younger kindergarten, first grader, you go through it with them, obviously, and you teach them to purge things that they no longer use. And then you set a pile aside for trash and a pile aside for donation. And then you do the same thing with the closet. Now, if it's an older child, you can task them to do this and you can incentivize them. So you say to them, go clean out your drawers. I want to see two piles of what you don't need or what you've outgrown and is no good and needs to be trashed, and a pile of things that you think are good to hand down to someone. And you can have them do this with their backpacks and with their toys at the same time. So now you get clean drawers, a clean closet. You didn't have to do this. And you can simultaneously take an inventory of what clothes your children need for school based on what they had to get rid of. The other bonus is that you then spend that afternoon or the next day taking them to the local Goodwill or your local donation site and donating their clothes. And there are also some who will take these clothes to consignment stores and get a little bit of money back. I know that that is a great idea for teenagers. And if they get a little money back, then you can let them have that money to buy something else for school for that upcoming year. And if they don't, then you can teach them how to be responsible and how to take care of their own space, how to keep it tidy and help you in purging. And also, at the same time, you're teaching them how to donate and how to be charitable. And you can, celebrate them with buying them a pizza on the way home. And what a great lesson for your kids. Try it. If you don't get to do it this year, keep it in mind for next year. And if you don't want to wait until next year, think about doing it over the Christmas break. I know I sound crazy talking about Christmas, but before you know it, it will be here. So I hope you enjoyed that little home tip with the kids. I loved raising my kids, and sending them back to school was one of my favorite times of the year. Not for the reasons you think, because, I was so tired of them being home. And no. Because I loved the idea of getting up and making lunch and taking them to school and picking them up and taking them to their practices. I loved the routine of being completely entrenched and involved with my children. I wasn't able to do that with my older two. I was blessed enough to be able to stay home and do that with my younger two. And so I cherished it. If you have that opportunity, live and cherish the moments. And if you are hustling and working and trying to make it work while you're doing your child rearing, my hat's off to you. I did that too. It's a lot harder, but it is all worth it in the end. Our kids are our biggest gift, our best asset, and our greatest donation to our time spent here on earth. And I hope your kids all have a great school year. I hope my grandchildren have a great school year. And I thank you for listening to this special summer series episode of the Living on the Verge podcast. We'll be back soon to talk Real Housewives of Miami and get you caught up on the final part of the Valley reunion, which was part 3. And if we ever get caught up, we'll be back with pop culture and Bravo news. And there's a lot of it coming down the pike. As we get closer to BravoCon, there will be more. So I appreciate you spending this time with me. Until next time, I'll be here living on the verge. While listening back to that trip now, I'm reminded that travel lives in our memories very differently from the way it appears on an itinerary. Right? Menorca and Sardinia, they were beautiful, of course, but what stays with me isn't simply a list of places we visited. It's the feeling of arriving somewhere unfamiliar. It's the small discoveries, the meals, the people watching, and those moments when you stop trying to manage every detail and just simply let yourself be where you are. Listening back, I can also hear how much travel asks of us. It can test our patience, our flexibility, and occasionally even our sense of humor. But it can also wake us up. It reminds us that the world is a much bigger place than our routines, and that there are countless ways to live a meaningful, beautiful life. That may be what I appreciate most about revisiting this episode now. The details of the trip may fade, but the way a place made you feel can remain remarkably vivid. And sometimes the greatest souvenir isn't something you packed in your suitcase. It's the version of yourself you discovered while you were away. I'd love to know, is there a destination that still lives vividly in your memory? And what made it unforgettable? Thank you for traveling back into the Virg Vault with me. Until next time, I'll be right here, living on the verge.